Declan wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his dirt-stained glove, the Texas sun beating down on the expansive lawns of the Hawthorne estate like it had a personal grudge. No one in this quiet Austin suburb would ever guess that the man pushing the heavy wheelbarrow full of mulch was actually Declan Harrington, heir to a billion-dollar real estate empire back in New York. But when Carter approached from the main building, his maintenance uniform crisp despite the heat, and his expression a mix of curiosity and caution, Declan knew his simple life was about to get complicated. "Mornin'. You the new gardener?" Carter asked, extending a calloused hand. His voice had that warm southern drawl, but there was an edge to it like he'd learned the hard way not to trust too quickly. "Name's Carter Hayes. I handle maintenance around here. Boss said you be starting today." Declan shook the hand, firmly noting the strength in the grip. Up close, Carter was striking mid-20s with sharp features, dark hair cut short, and eyes that seemed to see right through people. "Declan. Just Declan. Yeah, I'm the new guy with the plants." They stood there for a moment, the air between them thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and something else, something electric that Declan tried to ignore. He had come to Austin to escape everything: the board meetings, the expectations, the endless pressure from his father to marry the daughter of a business partner and produce an heir for the Harrington legacy. Being gay in that world wasn't just inconvenient, it was a liability that could topple empires. Here, with dirt under his nails and no one knowing his last name, he could breathe. Or so he thought. Carter nodded toward the rose beds. "Those beds need some serious work. Oh, Mr. Hawthorne let them go after his wife passed. You know your stuff. Enough to make them bloom again," Declan replied. He had studied horticulture in secret during college, a small rebellion against the business degree his family demanded. Now it was his cover. As they walked the grounds together, Carter pointing out problem areas, leaky sprinklers, cracked pathways, Declan found himself relaxing into the conversation. Carter talked about the estate like it was his own, sharing stories of fixing the old fountain last summer and dealing with the weekend events that brought in crowds. By midday, they were working side by side. Declan dug holes for new shrubs while Carter repaired a bench nearby. "So what brings a guy like you to Austin?" Carter asked casually, but Declan sensed the real question underneath. Most folks who end up here are either running from something or looking for a fresh start. Declan hesitated, his shovel pausing mid-thrust. Fresh start sound about right. New York was too much. Needed some space. It wasn't a complete lie. The truth was his father had discovered a discreet relationship Declan had years ago and threatened to cut him off unless he straightened up. Literally. So Declan had liquidated some personal assets, changed his appearance slightly, and disappeared to the one place his family wouldn't think to look: manual labor in the South. Carter chuckled. "I get that. Been here my whole life, but sometimes it feels like I'm the one running. Families in a small town outside the city. They don't exactly approve of, well, me." He gestured vaguely at himself, and Declan understood immediately. The way Carter said it without shame, but with a quiet defiance, hit Declan hard. Here was a man living openly what Declan had spent years burying. They broke for lunch under a large oak tree. Carter pulled out a simple sandwich from his cooler. "You got family back east? Parents? A sister? They're traditional." Declan kept it vague, biting into his own apple. Inside, his mind raced. He liked this guy, already: his honesty, his work ethic, the way he didn't flinch from hard tasks. But getting close meant risks. What if Carter found out? What if the attraction he was feeling, that pull when their hands brushed passing tools, led somewhere he couldn't control? As the afternoon wore on, a sudden rain shower forced them to seek shelter in the old carriage house. Sitting on overturned crates, they talked more deeply. Carter opened up a bit about growing up with a father who preached fire and brimstone, how coming out at 19 had cost him holidays and support. "I make my own way now," Carter said, his voice steady. "This job pays the bills, and I get to fix things, make them better. Can't ask for more." Declan nodded, envy mixing with admiration. "That takes guts. Living true to yourself despite what people say." His own words tasted bitter. He was the opposite, hiding behind dirt and plants, pretending to be ordinary, while millions sat in trusts waiting for him. When the rain stopped, they returned to work, but the connection lingered. By the end of the day, as Declan locked up the shed, Carter clapped him on the shoulder. "Not bad for a first date, Declan. See you tomorrow." "Yeah, tomorrow." Watching Carter walk away toward his beat-up truck, Declan felt the weight of his secrets heavier than ever. He had come here to escape lies, but already he was weaving new ones. And something told him Carter Hayes was going to make keeping them impossible. The evening brought Declan back to the small staff cottage on the edge of the property. He showered the dirt away, but the feeling of Carter's handshake stayed with him. Sitting on the edge of the narrow bed, he stared at the burner phone he used for emergencies. No messages from New York yet, but he knew his father, Victor, wouldn't stop looking. The old man had already sent private investigators twice before Declan slipped away. This time Declan had been careful, no credit cards, no family name on paperwork. But loneliness, the kind that came from years of hiding, was starting to crack his resolve. He thought of Carter's eyes, the way they lit up when he talked about restoring the garden. For the first time in years, Declan wondered what it would feel like to be seen not as an heir or a disappointment, but as himself. The thought scared him more than any boardroom battle. He lay down staring at the ceiling, the distant hum of Austin traffic, a reminder that the real world was never far away. Tomorrow he would keep the walls up, but part of him already hoped Carter would knock them down. The next morning, Carter arrived at the estate before the dew had burned off the grass. His truck rattled to a stop in the staff lot, and he grabbed his toolbox, replaying the conversation with Declan from yesterday in his head. There was something about the new gardener that felt both familiar and mysterious, like he was holding back a storm behind those calm green eyes. Carter had learned long ago not to get too attached, especially not to someone who might disappear like so many others had when the small-town gossip got too loud. But Declan had listened without judgment, and that was rare. As he walked toward the rose beds, he spotted Declan, already at work, sleeves rolled up, muscles flexing under the morning light. "Morning, Declan. Ready to tackle that fountain today?" Declan looked up, a smile breaking through the concentration on his face. "Absolutely. I was thinking we could reroute the pipes to improve the flow. Got some ideas from an old project I worked on." They fell into an easy rhythm, Carter handling the mechanical side, Declan managing the landscaping. As they worked, Carter shared more about his life, the odd jobs that kept him afloat, the community center, where he volunteered on weekends to help kids like he once was, kids who felt different and needed a safe place. "My dad still won't talk to me on the phone," Carter said, wiping grease from his hands. "Says I'm living in sin. But I figure if God made me this way, he must have a plan." The words came out lighter than the weight they carried, and Declan paused, his trowel mid-air, eyes softening. "That takes real strength, Carter. Most people would have folded." Declan wanted to say more, to admit that he understood the pressure better than anyone, but the secret sat like a stone in his chest. Instead, he steered the talk to safer ground, telling Carter about the plants. He hoped to add how lavender could attract butterflies and bring life back to the neglected corners. Their laughter echoed across the lawn when a sprinkler head suddenly sprayed them, both soaking their shirts. Carter shook water from his hair, grinning. "See what happens when you hang around me, chaos follows." By lunch, they sat on the same oak tree spot, this time sharing stories of bad first jobs and favorite movies. Carter admitted he had never left Texas, not even for a vacation, because money was always tight and family obligations kept him close. Declan listened, his heart aching with the contrast to his own privileged yet empty travels. He had seen the world on private jets, but never felt as grounded as he did here with Carter. A subtle shift happened when their fingers brushed, reaching for the same water bottle. The touch lingered a fraction too long, and Declan pulled back quickly, but not before noticing the flush on Carter's neck. Inside, Declan battled the rising tide of emotion. This was dangerous. He had come to Austin to find peace, not to fall for the one person whose honesty could unravel his entire disguise. Yet the pull was undeniable. The way Carter stood up for himself against the world mirrored the courage Declan wished he had. The afternoon brought a small crisis when a delivery of wrong soil arrived, and the two men had to sort through bags under the hot sun. Mike, the groundskeeper, walked by smirking. "You two sure spend a lot of time together." "Careful, Carter, don't want folks getting the wrong idea." Carter straightened his jaw tight. "The only wrong idea is minding business that ain't yours, Mike." Declan watched the exchange, admiration swelling for Carter's quiet defiance. Later, as they wrapped up, Declan offered to help Carter with his truck, which had been acting up. Under the hood, their shoulders touched, and conversation turned softer. "You ever think about what if?" Carter asked. "What if the world wasn't so quick to judge?" "All the time," Declan replied, his voice low. "But then I remember that living half a life is no life at all." The words were for Carter, but they cut Declan deepest. That night back in the cottage, Declan received a text from an unknown number. "Victor knows you're in Texas. Come home, son, before you ruin everything." The message shook him. He deleted it, but the fear remained. Across town, Carter sat on his porch thinking of Declan, the way his presence made the long days brighter. He had been hurt before by men who couldn't handle the reality of his life, but something about Declan felt different, worth the risk. The bond was growing, and with it the first hints of something deeper than friendship. Tomorrow would bring more work, more talks, and Declan hoped more time to figure out how to keep his secret without losing the man who was starting to feel like home. Days turned into weeks, and the Hawthorne estate began to transform under Declan and Carter's hands. The rose beds burst with color, the fountain gurgled steadily, and even the old pathways looked renewed. Carter arrived each morning with a lightness he hadn't felt in years. Declan was more than a co-worker now. He was the person Carter looked forward to seeing, the one who understood the weight of family rejection without needing every detail. One afternoon, a fierce thunderstorm rolled in, forcing them into the carriage house again. Rain pounded the roof as they sat on crates sharing coffee from Carter's thermos. "You know," Carter said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I've never told anyone this, but after my dad kicked me out, I slept in my truck for 2 months. Thought about giving up more times than I can count. But then I realized if I let them win, I'd never forgive myself." Declan stared at the rain-streaked window, his own memories flooding back. The night his father had confronted him with printed emails from a past relationship, the cold ultimatum to change or lose everything. "I know that feeling," Declan said quietly. "Family can build you up or break you down, and sometimes it's the same people doing both." He wanted to tell Carter everything, the billions, the lies, the arranged marriage his father had lined up with a woman Declan had met once at a charity gala. But the words stuck. Instead, he reached out and squeezed Carter's shoulder to touch, sending warmth through both of them. In that moment, the storm outside matched the one inside Declan. Attraction had deepened into something real and terrifying. He found himself memorizing the curve of Carter's smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. But every shared moment was a step closer to the day the truth would come out. The next day brought a shared project, rebuilding a pergola for an upcoming estate event. They worked in tandem, measuring, cutting, laughing when boards didn't fit. A local delivery driver stopped by and made a passing comment about 2 guys looking awfully friendly. Carter ignored it, but Declan saw the brief flash of pain in his eyes. Later over lunch, Carter opened up more about the prejudice he faced in town, the whispers at the grocery store, the lost friendships. "It wears on you," he admitted, "but I refuse to hide anymore." Declan nodded, feeling the hypocrisy burn. He was hiding in plain sight every day. That evening after Carter left, Declan sat alone in the garden, the stars emerging over the Austin hills. He pulled out his real phone for the first time in weeks and saw missed calls from his sister, begging him to call. The family business was struggling without him, the merger hanging by a thread. Guilt twisted in his gut, but so did the image of Carter's face. For the first time, he wondered if the price of his disguise was too high. The following morning, Carter brought breakfast tacos as a surprise. They ate on the grass, talking dreams, Carter of opening a small repair shop, Declan of one day owning a quiet piece of land where he could grow things without pressure. Their knees touched, and neither moved away. The tension built, a silent acknowledgement of feelings neither had voiced. But as they cleaned up, Declan's phone buzzed with another anonymous text. "Time is running out. Your secret won't stay hidden forever." He deleted it, heart racing. The storm was coming, and he wasn't sure if his growing love for Carter would survive it. The pergola stood finished just in time for the estate event, and Carter and Declan stood back admiring their work. Pride swelled in both men, but for Declan, it was laced with something bittersweet. He had never felt this connected to a project or a person. Carter suggested they celebrate with a quiet evening at a local diner after work. Nothing fancy, just burgers and shakes. Declan agreed, knowing it was risky, but unable to say no. At the diner, they sat in a corner booth, the neon lights casting soft glows. Carter talked about his hopes for the future, maybe adopting a dog one day, building a life on his own terms. Declan listened, hanging on every word, wishing he could share his own visions of a future free from boardrooms. When Carter's hand brushed his under the table, neither pulled away. The touch was innocent, yet charged with possibility. Back at the estate the next day, a minor slip happened. Declan absent-mindedly mentioned a high-end restaurant in New York that he had visited. Declan caught himself, but Carter noticed the detail. Fancy taste for a gardener, he teased, but let it go. Inside, Declan panicked. The walls were thinning. A jealous coworker, Mike, started spreading rumors around the staff that the two were more than friends. Carter confronted him in the shed, his voice steady but firm. What we do on our time is our business, Mike. Walk away. Declan watched from afar, admiration turning to protectiveness. He wanted to shield Carter from the world the way no one had shielded him. That night, Declan lay awake, the guilt heavier. He had started this disguise to find himself, but instead he was falling in love, and the deception was poisoning it. The following week, they worked on a new flower bed side by side, their conversations turning personal again. Carter shared how a past relationship had ended because his partner couldn't handle the family drama. Declan felt the words like a knife. He was becoming that partner, the one hiding. When a sudden windstorm damaged part of the garden, they worked through the night together, tarps and stakes in hand. Exhausted and covered in mud, they sat on the porch of the cottage, sharing a beer from Carter's cooler. "You're different," Declan, Carter said softly. "In a good way. Makes me want to see where this goes." Declan swallowed hard, his heart pounding. "I feel the same." The almost confession hung between them, a promise and a warning. As Carter left, Declan stared at the stars, knowing the time for truth was approaching faster than he could prepare for. File 5. The bond between Declan and Carter grew stronger with each passing day, but so did the cracks in Declan's facade. They spent more time together outside work, small moments like walks around the estate or fixing Carter's truck in the evenings. Carter began to open up about the daily microaggressions he faced, the stares at the hardware store, the family holidays he spent alone. Declan listened, offering support while his own secrets aided him. One evening, Carter's truck broke down completely, and Declan drove him home in the old estate van. At Carter's modest apartment, they sat on the couch talking late into the night. Carter leaned in closer, their faces inches apart. The kiss was gentle, tentative, full of the emotion they had been holding back. It wasn't rushed, it was a meeting of two souls tired of hiding. Declan pulled away, first his mind racing. This was real, and it terrified him. The next day at work, Mike approached Declan privately, offering a thinly veiled threat. "I know something's off about you. If I find out you're hiding something, it might be worth something to the right people." Declan brushed it off, but the encounter left him shaken. That afternoon, he received a call from his sister on the burner phone. "Dad is sick, Declan. The business is suffering. Please come back. We can work this out." The voice cracked with genuine worry, and Declan felt the pull of duty. But the memory of Carter's kiss kept him rooted. He told his sister he needed time. Internal conflict raged as he trimmed hedges, the shears moving mechanically while his mind battled choices. Love or legacy, honesty or safety. Carter noticed his distraction during lunch. "Everything okay, Declan? You seem a million miles away." Declan forced a smile. "Just family stuff. Nothing I can't handle." But the lie tasted worse than ever. The week built with more shared moments, a movie night at Carter's where they held hands in the dark, a picnic in the garden where they talked about the kind of future they might build together if the world allowed it. Carter expressed his fear of being abandoned, again Declan his fear of being exposed. The emotional intimacy deepened, but Declan's slips increased, a comment about stock markets, a luxury pen he accidentally left out. Carter didn't press, but the questions in his eyes grew. Meanwhile, Victor Harrington's investigators were closing in. A tip from a staff member at the estate had narrowed the search. Declan felt the noose tightening. One night alone, he wrote a letter he never sent, explaining everything to Carter. The words poured out, the love, the regret, the hope that Carter could forgive. But he tore it up, knowing words wouldn't be enough. The rising stakes made every decision heavier, the price of his deception clearer with each smile from Carter. The discovery came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Carter was helping Declan organize the tool shed when a box tipped over, spilling its contents. Among the gardening gloves and seeds, a sleek black wallet fell out. Carter picked it up to hand it back, but it opened, revealing credit cards with a name, Declan Harrington, and a photo ID from a New York firm. His heart stopped. He looked at Declan, who had frozen in place. "What is this?" Declan Carter asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The documents showed wealth connections, a life worlds away from the gardener they knew. Declan sank onto a crate, his face pale. It's not what you think. Or maybe it is. I'm not just Declan the gardener. My real name is Declan Harrington. My family owns half of Manhattan real estate. I came here to escape the pressure to be someone I'm not, the forced marriage, the expectations. Carter stepped back, the betrayal hitting like a physical blow. All this time you let me pour my heart out about my struggles, my family rejecting me for being gay, and you were playing poor, you were hiding a fortune while I scraped by. The anger mixed with hurt, tears welling in his eyes. I trusted you, Declan. Thought we were building something real. Declan reached out, but Carter pulled away. It was real, Carter. Every moment. I fell for you the way you are honest, brave. I was scared if you knew the truth, you'd see me as the rich guy using people. I wanted to tell you 100 times, but the lie grew too big. Carter shook his head, the pain raw. How am I supposed to believe anything now? The confrontation stretched long into the evening, voices rising then falling as Declan explained the family threats, the closeted life, the genuine desire to live simply. Carter listened, his heart breaking and mending in turns. By nightfall, they sat in silence, the garden dark around them. I need time, Carter said finally. This changes everything. Declan nodded, tears in his eyes. I understand. But please know I would give it all up for you. The discovery shattered the illusion, but also opened the door to truth. Carter left the estate that night, his mind reeling with the moral weight of the deception and the love that still pulled him back. The following days were a whirlwind of confrontation and external pressure. Carter avoided Declan at first, throwing himself into work, but the estate felt empty without their partnership. Then Victor Harrington arrived unannounced, his private jet landing at a nearby airport. He confronted Declan in the cottage, his voice booming. Enough of this nonsense, son. The company is bleeding money. Marry Elena, seal the merger, and take your place. We can make the gay thing disappear with the right PR. Declan stood tall for the first time. No, Dad. I'm not hiding anymore. I found someone who sees me. Victor laughed coldly. That janitor, the one my men told me about, he's after your money. A bribe was offered to Carter through a third party, a large sum to walk away and stay silent. Carter refused the money, but the offer stung, deepening his doubts. The big confrontation happened in the garden, Declan, Carter, and Victor facing off. Carter spoke up, his voice steady despite the fear. Your son is a good man, Mr. Harrington. But he lied to me and to himself. I don't know if I can forgive that. Declan begged for understanding, explaining the internal torment, the sacrifice he was willing to make walking away from the empire. The side betrayal came when Mike leaked photos to a local tabloid hinting at the scandal. The pressure mounted, family prejudice against Carter's background and orientation laid bare. Declan chose to publicly acknowledge his identity in a simple statement to the estate staff, choosing love over legacy. The emotional cost was high, tears, arguments, and a moment where Carter almost walked away forever. But in the end, seeing Declan's willingness to lose everything awakened something in Carter. Forgiveness wasn't instant, but the awakening was mutual, both men realizing the price of secrets and the value of truth. In the weeks that followed, Declan began the process of distancing from the family empire, donating a portion of his personal wealth to LGBTQ youth programs in Austin and stepping down from the board. Carter watched the transformation, his heart softening as he saw the man he fell for emerge fully. They talked for hours in the garden, the same one that had brought them together, working through the hurt, rebuilding on honesty. The societal prejudice didn't vanish overnight, but together they faced it, Carter introducing Declan to his small circle of friends, Declan standing beside Carter at community events. Sacrifices were made, Declan sold his luxury assets to prove his commitment, Carter opened his heart fully despite the risk. Their love deepened into a quiet strength forged in fire. The estate thrived under their continued care, a symbol of growth from deception to authenticity. As they sat on the porch one evening watching the sunset, Declan took Carter's hand. I was lost in lies, but you showed me the way out. Carter smiled. And you showed me that even the biggest secrets can't erase real connection if we're willing to fight for it. The journey had changed them both. Internal conflicts resolved through painful choices, family pressures confronted, societal judgments challenged. They stood together, not perfect, but awake and committed. Was it true that love could heal the wounds of deception, or false because some lies leave scars too deep to fade? True or false? No matter the reasons, hiding your true self from the person you love is always a betrayal that love cannot fully overcome.